Dolly, where I come from, would I have called you a hillbilly?
If you had of, it would have been something very natural, but I would have probably kicked your shins or something.
Sweet Dolly Parton, the singer everyone loves, actually named 5 singers she truly could not stand. And this news is shaking everything up. We all know Dolly for her big smiles and kind songs, but even she had people who really bothered her in the tough music world. Now, we're finding out about these 5 singers who pushed her too far. Let us brace ourselves as we uncover the names that made Dolly's good nature crack. Porter Wagner. Nobody makes it to the top all by themselves. For Dolly Parton, her early steps to fame were tied closely to Porter Wagner. He was already a big name in country music. When Dolly joined the Porter Wagner Show in 1967, she was taking the place of Norma Jean, a singer the audience loved. At first, people weren't happy. They booed Dolly on stage and even sent her mean letters. But Porter, a smart showman who knew what people liked, believed in Dolly. He insisted she stay. Soon, the audience started to love Dolly and Porter together. Their duets were fantastic. Their voices sounded great together, and they seemed to get along perfectly on TV. For a while, they were the top duo in country music, with many hit songs, but what people saw on TV wasn't always the full story.
Grand Ole Opry. Man, you know what, I could sit here and talk for hours about this beautiful lady, and I'm so very proud to have her.
Behind their smiles and hit records, problems were growing. Porter was the big star, and reports say he didn't just see Dolly as a partner. He wanted to control her career. He managed where she performed, picked the songs they would record, and had the final say on most of their business deals.
Clay, it's improved to a great deal, I think. It's added a lot of dignity to the country music scene.
But Dolly was more than just a singer with a pretty voice. She was writing songs all the time. She was a smart woman with her own big dreams, dreams that went much further than being the girl singer on a TV show. The information given shows she felt trapped. She wanted to be free to make her own choices and sing her own songs. She went along with things for years because she knew Porter had given her a huge chance, but she was getting more and more unhappy. The new songs she was writing, songs that would later become huge hits, didn't always fit what Porter wanted for their show.
Of them carrying our show, and of course it's 6 on Saturday evening, which is a very good time.
By 1973, things were too tense. Dolly had promised to stay for 5 years, but she had already been there for 7. She later said, "He was just having a really hard time because it was going to mess up his show. We were very bound and tied together in so many emotional ways, and he just would not hear it." So, in 1974, she made the very hard choice to leave. To the public, it looked like they parted as friends.
A lot of people thought I was taking off because Dolly had left my show. That wasn't the reason.
But the real trouble was still to come. 5 years later, in 1979, Porter did something that shocked Dolly. He sued her for $3 million. He said she broke their contract and owed him money from her work since she left. Dolly was, by all accounts, deeply hurt. Instead of fighting him in public and getting into a nasty battle, Dolly decided to settle the case out of court.
I'd get the guitar. The guy that owned the grocery store was really my biggest fan, I suppose, because he really liked to hear me sing.
She wanted to be free more than she wanted to fight. The source material says this whole mess showed an ugly part of Porter that Dolly had never seen before. It hurt her badly. This tough time taught her a lot about the music business. It helped make her the smart businesswoman she is today. Years later, they did make peace. Dolly even honored Porter by putting him into the Country Music Hall of Fame in 2002, and she visited him when he was very sick before he died in 2007. She even held a special concert for him at Dollywood. But this difficult chapter with Porter was one of the biggest fights of her career, showing how hard she had to fight to be her own person. Porter's control was a tough fight, but Dolly would soon find out that working with another female star could bring its own kind of heartache. 2. Linda Ronstadt. Think of 3 amazing voices coming together: Dolly Parton, Linda Ronstadt, and Emmylou Harris. Their trio project, which they first thought of in the mid-1970s, finally came out as an album in 1987. It was meant to be a supergroup with voices like no other. The album was a huge success. It sold millions, topped the country charts, and even won a Grammy Award.
You know, it was such a dive. I didn't know. I mean, it was the biggest thing I'd ever seen. It was certainly a lot more hot stuff than anything I'd seen in Tucson, you know. And
their voices blended beautifully, but making this beautiful music was reportedly not always a beautiful experience, especially between Dolly and Linda Ronstadt. What should have been a happy time for these talented women sometimes turned into a clash of different working styles and personalities. This nearly broke apart their musical friendship.
It's interesting. I mean, for me, because I'd never acted before, but what it seemed to me was you take a little tiny facet of your own personality, however minute or grand it may be.
The main problem was how differently they liked to work in the recording studio. Dolly was known for working quickly and trusting her feelings. She often recorded her parts perfectly in just 1 or 2 tries. She believed in capturing the emotion of a song right away and then moving on. Linda Ronstadt, however, was described as someone who wanted everything to be perfect.
It's not like they have to make themselves go pick the guitar up and practice. That's not going to be somebody who's ever going to turn out to be a professional.
Reports say she would spend hours trying to get a single line of a song just right, always aiming for something almost impossible to reach. Emmylou Harris often had to act as the peacemaker, trying to balance the very different ways Dolly and Linda worked. Dolly, who always speaks her mind, later said how hard it was. She described working with Linda like dealing with a diva who loves to live in the studio and work so slowly. Dolly even admitted she wanted to yell at Linda countless times. The studio, which should have been a place for making music together, sometimes felt tense and stressful. Even though the first trio album was a big hit, it didn't solve these problems. They tried to make a second album, Trio 2, in 1994, but the recording sessions again had similar issues. On top of that, there were disagreements with their record company and problems with their schedules. This meant the album didn't come out until 1999.
I lived with a bunch of people that I knew from Tucson on the beach, and we just started hanging around the Troubadour.
By that time, the information suggests that their working relationship was badly damaged. Linda Ronstadt didn't keep quiet about her feelings later on. In interviews, she openly said she thought Dolly was unreliable. Linda stated that Dolly was hard to rely on, would often cancel plans or show up late, and was never on time. She even called Dolly always a little flaky. Linda felt it was more than just Dolly being late. She believed Dolly didn't fully respect the process or commitment needed for their group project and cared more about her own solo career. Hearing these things from another singer must have hurt Dolly.
Maybe when I was 3 and wanted a wedding dress, I don't know, you know.
Linda even said she had no intention of working with Dolly again, feeling that Dolly's supposed lack of professionalism had spoiled what was supposed to be a joyful collaboration. Although many years have passed and there have been signs of reconciling, the provided text suggests things were still awkward between them. Their friendship never really got back to what it was. For Dolly, Linda's sharp public words likely echoed in Dolly's ears, leaving a bad taste in her mouth. It was a sad ending to what could have been a wonderful musical partnership.
It just wouldn't come. We'd go and we'd find these tunes and they would sort of miraculously slip away. It was like trying to catch on to mercury, you know?
While working with friends brought its own pain, Dolly would soon face a high-stakes fight over her most personal song with one of the biggest male stars in the world. 3. Elvis Presley. It was a meeting that could have made music history. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, and Dolly Parton, the rising queen of country. One of Dolly's most famous and personal songs, I Will Always Love You, got Elvis's attention.
Actually, they only got over there about 2 months before I left. I was seeing her, and she was at the airport when I left.
Dolly wrote it in 1973 as a way to say goodbye to her mentor, Porter Wagner, as she left his show. In the mid-1970s, Elvis was famous all over the world. The idea of him singing her song was a huge compliment to Dolly. Like so many other, she admired Elvis. But this dream of working together turned into a big problem. Not really with Elvis himself, but with his tough manager, Colonel Tom Parker.
holding to all the countries all over the world via satellite. It's very difficult to comprehend.
The problem, as often happened with Colonel Parker, was about money and control. Colonel Parker was known for having a tight grip on Elvis's career and for making very tough deals. He told Dolly that Elvis would only record her song if Elvis's team got at least half of the money the song made from publishing rights.
Honey, I just tend to keep my own personal views about that to myself. I'm just an entertainer, and I'd rather not.
For Dolly, this was a deal she could not accept. She was becoming known as a smart songwriter who protected her work. I Will Always Love You was not just any song to her. As Dolly said, "This is the most important copyright in my whole publishing company, and I can't do that." Her decision wasn't just about the money, even though that was a lot. It was about respect for her own work. She had put her heart into that song, and she wasn't going to give away such a big piece of it, no matter who was asking.
Have you ever seen the inside of a dome before?
Never have. It scares them. It's a big place, man, you know.
Dolly later said she was very hurt by the deal Elvis's team offered. She felt it wasn't a fair offer, but a trap, a way to exploit her as her career was growing. Saying no was a very hard decision. According to Dolly, Elvis himself was very upset that she turned down the deal. He really loved the song and wanted to record his own version. Dolly felt bad for him and understood why he was disappointed.
I was tame compared to what they do now. Are you kidding? I didn't do anything. We just jiggle, you know.
But she stood strong. She knew that if she gave in to Colonel Parker's demands, it would make it easier for other powerful people in the music business to take advantage of her in the future. The information given says this disagreement caused a lot of tension. Even though Dolly always spoke kindly of Elvis, she admitted she didn't think he ever fully forgave her for saying no. She was heartbroken by the fallout, especially because she respected him so much as an artist. She even said Elvis was very sensitive.
But when they looked around and saw I was on KP and I was pulling guard and everything just like they were, well, they figured, well.
This event stopped a famous musical collaboration from happening, but it also showed Dolly's strength and smart business sense. Years later, Whitney Houston recorded I Will Always Love You, and it became one of the biggest songs of all time. Because Dolly owned the rights, she made millions. This proved that her difficult decision to say no to Elvis's team was the right one for her career and her future. It was a quiet fight, but Dolly held her ground.
I liked all different types of music when I was a child, you know. Of course, the Grand Ole Opry was the first thing I ever heard, probably.
Standing up for her songs was one thing, but Dolly would soon be blindsided by a cruel public attack that had nothing to do with music. 4. Billy Ray Cyrus. Dolly Parton is known for her warm heart and always trying to see the good in people. She's a peacemaker, not a fighter, and she usually keeps her opinions on other folks' troubles to herself, especially when it comes to friends. It takes something really out of line to make Dolly show she's truly upset or deeply disappointed with someone she cares about.
I ask myself that all the time. It's like every day. How did Dolly Parton...
But in late 2024 and early 2025, longtime acquaintance Billy Ray Cyrus, the father of her goddaughter Miley, managed to push Dolly to that point. Billy Ray, who Dolly has known for many years, was going through some very public family feuds and displaying behavior that had many, including Dolly, worried.
She's a very creative artist, intangible of reinvention. That's the thing that Dolly is so good at.
The problem wasn't a single loud event like an on-air shock jock attack. Instead, it was a growing unease that turned into genuine pain for Dolly. Reports from that time suggested that Dolly, acting as a concerned friend and loving godmother to Miley, had privately reached out to Billy Ray. She had gently urged him to get some help, to find a way to mend his family fences, and to step back from the public drama that seemed to be swallowing him whole. She did this quietly, out of love and genuine concern, hoping to support him and protect Miley from more fallout. For Dolly, this was an act of friendship, an offer of a steady hand.
I have been really being a dad and being a bachelor and...
But Billy Ray, caught up in his own whirlwind, apparently didn't take Dolly's heartfelt advice in the spirit it was given. Instead of appreciating the private counsel from a trusted figure, word got out that Billy Ray had either dismissed Dolly's concerns or, even worse, had somehow twisted her attempts to help. Some whispers suggested he felt Dolly was taking sides or meddling, rather than seeing her actions as the caring intervention of a godmother and friend.
Again, I'm going, can't I just have something in the middle here? Does it have to be this drastic, that...
It was as if he'd taken her genuine worry and thrown it back in her face, perhaps by complaining to mutual acquaintances, or by making light of her serious concerns. For Billy Ray, in his troubled state, Dolly's advice might have felt like criticism. But for Dolly, who had only offered her support with the best intentions, this was a profound betrayal of trust and friendship.
Well, I'll tell you, that'll certainly be that'll be something that I'll remember, obviously, for the rest of my life. And when my dad goes back to the State House end of July.
Dolly, who rarely, if ever, airs her grievances publicly, was said by those close to her to be deeply saddened and hurt by Billy Ray's reaction. One insider was quoted as saying, "Dolly loves Billy Ray, but she loves Miley like her own. To see Billy Ray not take care of himself and his family, and then to seemingly ignore or misinterpret her private words of support, well, it cut her deep. She put her heart out there for him, and it feels like it was stomped on." There was no big public statement from Dolly. That's not her style. She wouldn't dream of adding to the Cyrus family's public spectacle, however.
With every ending is a new beginning.
Yeah.
And it's just great that they brought this little boy into our world. He's amazing.
The message was clear through her silence and the reports from her inner circle. A line had been crossed. She had offered private, loving advice, born out of years of friendship and her role as a godmother, and it felt like Billy Ray had publicly, or at least among their shared circle, disregarded or disrespected that. Billy Ray, meanwhile, continued his public struggles, seemingly oblivious to the deep hurt he had caused one of country music's most enduring icons, and a woman who had been a constant in his daughter's life. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of her pain.
You have to try. And it's just like baseball. Baseball's the best analogy of all for life.
Though Dolly could eventually face even Billy, criticism from a fellow songwriter would soon test her in a quieter, but still cutting, way. 5. Jeff Tweety. Dolly Parton's songwriting is a key reason she's a legend. She has written everything from sad, beautiful ballads to fun, catchy songs that everyone loves. Her ability to write songs that connect with so many different people is truly special. It's not often that other musicians publicly criticize such a beloved icon.
Well, I get asked this question a lot, like what makes a good song, and I think people...
That's not what I asked you.
But Jeff Tweety, the well-known leader of the band Wilco, which plays a type of alternative country music, did exactly that. He shared his opinion on Dolly's songwriting, and while it wasn't a direct personal attack, it questioned how deep her lyrics really were. This reportedly made Dolly unhappy.
Because I had to trade them to get some stuff at a store in St. Louis.
Jeff Tweety is a respected songwriter himself. His own songs are often deep and complex. In an interview, he talked about Dolly's songwriting. He did say that she was important in music history and had a big impact on country music. But then he started to criticize the quality of her lyrics. The information given says Tweety called her lyrics superficial. He suggested that while Dolly's songs were popular and had catchy hooks, they didn't have the complex, thought-provoking lyrics and depth that he thought great songwriting should have. He even hinted that Dolly's huge success was more about her persona and less about the depth of her music. One thing he said was particularly sharp, even if it sounded a bit mixed up. "No, I love Dolly Parton. All I know is that she wrote Jolene and I Will Always Love You on the same day, and I think she should have stopped after Jolene." He started by saying he loved her, but then saying she should have stopped writing after two of her most famous songs could easily be seen as a hidden insult or a way of dismissing her larger body of work. According to reports mentioned in the information, Dolly was aware of Tweety's comments and didn't appreciate the criticism. Dolly has written thousands of songs. Many of them are very personal and come from her own life, her childhood in poverty, her dreams, and her heartbreaks. Hearing another musician, especially one known for his lyrics, call her work superficial must have stung a bit. Dolly has often talked about how she writes from her heart and how her songs tell the story of her life. To have that honesty questioned would naturally be upsetting. However, the information also suggests that Dolly has been in the music business long enough to know that critics will always have their opinions.
You know, what makes them lie? Yes, that's interesting, but do they believe the lie themselves?
For her, the real value of her songwriting probably comes from the millions of people whose lives her music has touched. She has consistently poured her authentic self into her craft, creating anthems of joy, solace, and introspection that resonate deeply across generations. While Jeff Tweety's comments might have caused her some unhappiness, her huge list of songs, her many awards, and the way her music continues to influence people speak for themselves. This enduring legacy isn't just about commercial success, it's about the countless personal moments her songs have underscored and defined for so many. They make such criticisms feel almost irrelevant to her mission. Her place in American music history is safe, built on the real connection she has made with listeners through her words and music. This profound bond ensures her voice will continue to echo long after fleeting critiques have faded. Dolly's journey, marked by these challenging encounters, reveals a resilience as dazzling as her stage persona. What's your take on these feuds? Share your thoughts. Like and subscribe for more.